Welcome to the warm, sun-drenched stone of ancient Greece, a land carved from myth and philosophy, where the seas whisper secrets and marble gods watch silently from crumbling pedestals. Tonight, we invite you to step back, not as a god or a hero, but as yourself, dropped straight into a world far more difficult than its golden image suggests. Before we begin, if you find comfort in quiet history and drifting into sleep while learning something new, please take a moment to subscribe to Medieval Nocturnes. Your support helps us keep creating peaceful journeys into the past. Your morning in ancient Greece begins not with a gentle chime, but with sweat. The sun rises early and mercilessly, turning your home into a slow oven. Walls made of mud bricks and rough-cut stone hold in the heat like a furnace. There's no glass in the windows, just shutters that barely block the light or the goats, and insulation. That's the blanket you're clutching, if you're lucky. You're not getting out of bed because you're well-rested. You're getting up because it's already too hot to lie still. Your bed isn't much. A straw-stuffed mat, no pillows. Maybe a folded cloak under your head. The occasional lice or flea is your uninvited bedmate. You slept in the same room as your entire family, possibly with a goat in the corner, depending on your luck. You get up stiff and tired, your tunic sticking to you, and shuffle to begin your day. Water is your first task, but don't expect a faucet. You have to walk, barefoot or in worn sandals, to the nearest public fountain, or, well, if you're lucky, it's nearby. If not, it's a long haul over dusty roads with a clay jug balanced on your shoulder. The sun is already climbing, and your tunic is already damp. You feel the heat climbing your spine as you reach the water source and begin the slow walk back. Arms burning, shoulders aching, and every step a test of balance and strength. You don't bathe in the morning. That's a luxury for later, if at all. Instead, you rub your face with water, maybe massage olive oil into your skin and scrape it off with a curved metal blade called a strigil. It's not refreshing, it's ritual. You're not clean, you're simply less dirty. The oil collects the dust and sweat, then gets scraped off like old paint from a wall. If you're doing it publicly, you're doing it communally. Privacy isn't something ancient Greeks put a high value on. You haven't eaten yet, but you're already sore, already hot, already weary. And that's before the worst meal of the day, breakfast. Because in ancient Greece, breakfast is more like an afterthought than a meal. Breakfast in ancient Greece is not the comforting start you might imagine. There's no warm bread, no eggs, no fresh fruit laid out with a hot drink. Instead, you reach for stale barley bread known as maza, dense, flavorless, and often baked in the ashes of yesterday's fire. It's more survival ration than meal. You might dip it in watered-down wine to soften the texture and chase away the taste of dirt. Water alone isn't safe. There's no filtration, and diseases lurk in the wells. The wine isn't for pleasure, it's for practicality. If you're fortunate, and that's a stretch, you may have a fig or a scrap of goat cheese to break the monotony. But those are luxuries, usually reserved for wealthier households. You chew in silence, perhaps standing or squatting, because there are no breakfast tables or cutlery, no conversation over morning coffee. You eat to fuel, not to enjoy. For women and children, mealtime may happen later, after the men. In many households, the males eat first, and everyone else waits. It's not equality, it's routine. There are no plates, no forks, and certainly no napkins. You might use your fingers or a hunk of bread as an edible utensil. Meals are short and silent. Unless the bread is hard enough to chip a tooth, then maybe there's some swearing. And after all that, it's back to labor. If you're a man, you're off to work in the fields, or perhaps to train for war. If you're a woman, your day has just begun, and it won't end until well after sundown. But first, it's time for hygiene. And in ancient Greece, hygiene is more about philosophy than bathing. When it happens, is with cold water, poured from a jug, scooped from a basin, or collected from a fountain. There's no soap, no shampoo. Olive oil takes its place. You smear it over your skin and scrape it off with your strigil, hopefully removing some dirt and body odor in the process. But the smell of sweat is constant. The heat returns the moment you dry off. Teeth, there's no toothbrush. Some chew on twigs or rub their gums with charcoal or vinegar. It's more superstition than science. Dental care is a gamble. You chew, you hope, and if something hurts, you pray it stops. Body odor is expected. Deodorant doesn't exist. A bit of perfume, if you're wealthy, might help mask the stench, but it's fleeting. You'll sweat it off before noon. And clothes, you have two options, a chiton or a hemation. Both are large pieces of cloth, tied or pinned in place with minimal regard for function. There's no tailoring. One strong breeze, and your dignity's on display. No underwear, no socks. If your pin slips, your whole day gets more dramatic. So now you're cleanish, dressed in a wrinkled sheet, and full of dry barley. Your feet are bare or in worn sandals. Your chores are waiting. And it's not even mid-morning. Now that you've scraped, strapped, and stumbled your way into the morning, it's time to face the Aegean sun, and it does not play fair. You step outside, and the heat greets you like a slap. There's no sunscreen, no hat, unless you're a farmer, and your linen tunic does nothing to shield your skin. By noon, your shoulders are singed, your feet are dusty, and you've begun sticking to yourself in places too uncomfortable to mention. Welcome to the Greek workday. If you're a man of working age, congratulations, you're expected to be a soldier. Military service isn't a career choice, it's a civic obligation. In Athens, you begin training in your teens, 2 years of drills, weapons training, and formation practice in the famed phalanx in Sparta. Training begins at age 7. The agoge, Sparta's brutal school for boys, builds warriors through starvation, beatings, and forced isolation. The weak are weeded out early. Survival is strength. You don't get to say, I'm more of a thinker. Even Socrates fought in battle. Every free male is a soldier first, farmer or merchant second. And peace, it's just the break between wars. There's always some city-state challenging another. Athens versus Sparta, Sparta versus Persia. Someone always wants land, resources, or revenge. If you're poor, you fight with minimal armor, maybe a leather chest piece, maybe a borrowed spear. If you're wealthier, you bring your own bronze gear, helmet, shield, greaves. That's right, bring your own equipment. War isn't just dangerous, it's expensive. And when you're not fighting, you're training, cleaning weapons, or preparing for the next conflict. There are no pensions, no veterans' care, just scars and faded glory. But let's say you're not a man. Let's say you're a woman in ancient Greece. Then your world is a different kind of battlefield. One fought behind walls, in silence, and with little chance of escape. In most city-states, especially Athens, women live under strict rules. You can't vote, can't own land independently, can't speak in public forums. Your movements are limited. If people see you outside too often, whispers begin about your character, your virtue, your role. that whisper could be enough to ruin you. Your daily routine is grueling and invisible. You wake before dawn to manage the home, grinding grain, spinning wool, weaving cloth, baking bread, raising children. You fetch water, clean, oversee any household slaves, and tend to the hearth. You are the manager of the domestic sphere, but without recognition or reward. You don't attend plays, join debates, or visit the gymnasium. Those are for men. You live in the gyneconitis, the women's quarters. Even your education is limited. You learn how to manage a household, maybe read a little philosophy, rhetoric, geometry. That's for the boys, your greatest social accomplishment. A good marriage, arranged by your father, often while you're still a teen, to a man twice your age. Your value is measured in dowry and childbearing. Your freedom ends at the door, and your voice, if heard too loudly, might be mistaken for rebellion. If you're a Spartan woman, your experience is different, but not necessarily easier. Spartan society values strength above all, and that applies to women too. You're educated, trained in athletics, and encouraged to speak your mind. You can own land and inherit property. Compared to other Greek women, you have unusual freedoms. But those freedoms come with expectations. Your primary role is to birth strong warriors. If you can't produce healthy sons, your status declines quickly. You run, wrestle, and throw javelins, not for fun, but because a strong body makes strong children. Your strength is patriotic. Your womb is political. And though your voice may be louder than an Athenian woman's, it still doesn't echo beyond Sparta's borders. Back in Athens, democracy is being born. But don't be fooled by the word. It doesn't include you. To participate in politics, you must be male, born to Athenian parents, and over 18. That excludes women, slaves, children, and immigrants, about 90% of the population. This rule by the people is really rule by a specific group of sunburned men in sandals. And those men, they're busy. Every citizen is expected to participate in the assembly, where laws are proposed and debated. There are no full-time politicians, just fishmongers and farmers with opinions. Some government roles are assigned by lottery. Your cousin, who can't count, might be in charge of the treasury tomorrow. Democracy here is passionate, loud, and chaotic. If someone gets too popular, they're at risk of ostracism. Once a year, citizens vote to exile someone for a decade. No trial, no defense. Just scribble their name on a piece of pottery and hope enough people agree. You could be a war hero or a philosopher. If you're too influential, you're seen as a threat. Speaking of threats, ancient Greece depends on one institution to function smoothly. Slavery. Slavery is everywhere. It's not questioned, it's not hidden, it's expected. Even modest households own slaves, not because they're rich, but because the institution is so deeply ingrained that owning another human is seen as normal. Slaves aren't from a single race or group. They're war captives, kidnapped people, or even other Greeks taken in conflict. They serve in homes, workshops, and mines. In Athens, a slave might teach your children or handle your business. In the silver mines of Lorien, they dig through narrow shafts in darkness, breathing in toxic dust. Children and adults alike are worked to death underground for coinage and civic pride. They have no rights, no recourse. They are property, plain and simple. Even freed slaves are limited. They can't vote, can't hold office, and remain socially inferior. There's no abolitionist movement. No one's marching to end this system. Philosophers like Aristotle even defend it, claiming that some people are slaves by nature. So yes, Greece gave the world democracy, art, and philosophy. But it also depended on a system of forced labor and brutal inequality to keep that golden age shining. Let's say something goes wrong, an injury, a fever, a mysterious rash. Welcome to ancient Greek healthcare, where medicine is equal parts hope, herbs, and divine intervention. There are no hospitals, no doctors as we understand them today. If you're lucky, a traveling healer might visit your village, offering wisdom drawn from scrolls and guesswork. If not, you stay home and pray. Greek medicine is rooted in the theory of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Too much of one, and you're out of balance. Fever, you've got too much blood, time to bleed you. Melancholy, that's black bile. Go stare at the sea. Treatments vary wildly, from garlic compresses to poppy seed tonics to goat dung poultices. Does it work? Sometimes. But even when it doesn't, you're told it's the will of the gods. Surgery is a terrifying prospect. There's no anesthesia, no antiseptic, just iron knives, firm hands, and pain. If you need something amputated, bite down hard and hope you don't go septic. Midwives deliver babies, often with nothing but instinct and herbs to guide them. Childbirth is risky, so risky that it remains one of the leading causes of death for women. One bad birth, and there's little anyone can do. If you're sick enough, you might visit a healing temple, Asclepion, where patients sleep, fast, and pray for dreams sent by Asclepius, the god of healing. Your dream is then interpreted by a priest who prescribes rituals or bathing in sacred springs. It's more religious retreat than hospital. Still, ancient Greek medicine isn't all myth. Physicians like Hippocrates observe patients carefully. They understand that diet, rest, and fresh air affect health. The Hippocratic Oath, still used in modern medicine, urges doctors to do no harm. But most people will never meet a doctor. Most depend on folk remedies, temple rituals, or sheer luck. And when luck runs out, death isn't far behind. But death doesn't mean rest. Not necessarily. If your family can't afford proper burial rites, coin for the ferryman, rituals for safe passage to the underworld, your soul might wander eternally. Ghosts are real in Greek belief. Unburied dead are dangerous. So even in death, the bureaucracy continues. Still alive, let's distract you with some culture. Maybe a trip to the theater. In Athens, theater is more than entertainment. It's a civic and religious duty. You pack into an open-air amphitheater with thousands of other citizens. The sun blazes overhead, and you're expected to stay all day through tragedies, comedies, and satyr plays. No intermission, no snacks, no bathrooms. The performances are raw. Tragedies wrench your soul, madness, war, betrayal. Comedies are absurd and biting, mocking politicians, philosophers, and bodily functions alike. Actors wear giant masks, platform shoes, and costumes shaped like exaggerated anatomy. The audience shouts, cheers, and throws things. Theater in ancient Greece isn't passive. It's participation with volume. And as the sun sets and you wander home from a full day of weeping and laughing, you're reminded that the Greeks didn't just create art, they lived it, loudly, emotionally, and with every fiber of their dusty, sun-scorched beings. As you step out of the open-air theater, your body stiff from stone seating, and your emotions raw from hours of tragic poetry, the world doesn't slow down. it spills right back into your senses. Dust, heat, shouts from the agora, and the smell of roasted fish wafting through the streets. The agora, the bustling heart of the city, is more than a marketplace. It's a forum for every part of Greek life. You might come to buy figs or olive oil, but you'll leave with a head full of philosophy, whether you want it or not. Because somewhere near the fountain, there's a man in a ragged cloak and no shoes asking questions. "What is justice?" he says, staring at you with wild eyes. Congratulations, you've just met a philosopher. In ancient Athens, these thinkers are everywhere. Some, like Plato and Aristotle, are shaping the very foundations of science, politics, and ethics. Others, well, they're just passionate amateurs hoping to change the world, one awkward public debate at a time. Take Socrates, for example. He's not writing books. He's dismantling your worldview. You could be minding your business, buying grapes, petting a stray dog, and he'll corner you into a spiral of self-doubt. He doesn't give answers. He gives questions, lots of them. And before you know it, you're questioning the nature of truth because you said something mildly confident about what a good citizen is. Philosophy isn't reserved for ivory towers. It happens on the streets, in gymnasiums, even at dinner parties. If you speak too confidently at a symposium, a philosopher might politely ruin your whole evening with a single, well-placed riddle. It's equal parts invigorating and exhausting. And if you think you're just an observer, think again. In ancient Greece, everyone is fair game in the war of ideas. Of course, not everyone enjoys this mental sparring. In fact, Athens eventually executes Socrates for corrupting the youth and impiety. But let's be honest, it's probably also because he just wouldn't shut up during dinner. And as the sun begins to dip toward the horizon, you realize that no matter how advanced ancient Greece seems, its culture, its politics, its philosophy, it's a world on edge, a society that pushes every citizen into conflict, whether in war, thought, or status. Everyone's striving, arguing, laboring to leave their mark. But in doing so, they also risk exile, execution, or ridicule. That pressure never really stops. There's always a new battle on the battlefield, in the assembly, or within the mind. You don't get to coast. Not in a world where democracy, theater, and warfare all demand your full participation. And tomorrow it begins again with heat, sweat, stale barley, and more questions than you ever asked for. In a place where democracy thrives on loud voices and philosophy thrives on discomfort, even success can be a dangerous thing. Popularity in ancient Athens isn't a prize, it's a risk. The more people like you, the more you stand out. And in a culture that fears tyranny above all else, standing out too much can get you banished. This is where ostracism comes in, a uniquely Athenian method of social control. Once a year, citizens gather and vote, not for a leader, but for someone they want gone. They scratch names onto shards of broken pottery, called astraca. If a name collects 6,000 votes or more, that person is exiled for 10 years. No trial, no appeal, just pack your things and leave. You don't need to be guilty of a crime. You might have one too many arguments, spoken too eloquently in the assembly, or simply looked too comfortable with power. Themistocles, the military hero who saved Athens from Persia, exiled. Aristides, the just, also exiled, reportedly because someone was tired of hearing how righteous he was. But there's a strange grace to ostracism. You keep your property. You're not imprisoned. After 10 years, you're allowed to return, as if nothing happened. It's less about punishment and more about pressure release, a way to protect democracy by occasionally ejecting the overachievers. Still, it means that no one is ever truly safe, not generals, not statesmen, not philosophers. And in a world as intense and participatory as Athens, that anxiety lingers like smoke after a fire. You're always watching your back, measuring your words, smiling just enough to avoid suspicion. Now imagine trying to navigate this political chessboard while also living with the knowledge that everything is built on the back of slavery. The temples, the roads, the ships, the very silver coins in your pocket, all owe their existence to the labor of those who had no choice. In ancient Greece, slavery isn't hidden in the shadows. It's everywhere, accepted and normalized. Even small households own at least 1 or 2 slaves, not because they're wealthy, but because society expects it. Slaves cook, clean, tend the children, and handle business. Some are educated, serving as tutors or scribes. Others are worked to death in silver mines, buried alive under the weight of ore and empire. Freedom is rarely given. Even if a slave earns it, they'll never become a full citizen. No voting rights, no land ownership, no true independence. The best they can hope for is to become a medic, a resident alien still expected to pay taxes, still barred from politics. It's a hard truth to swallow, especially from a society that gave the world the concept of democracy. But this is ancient Greece, brilliant, brutal, and built on contradictions. For every marble statue or golden idea, there's a darker stone beneath it, etched with suffering, silenced voices, and stories history prefers not to tell. Let's say you're one of the many who fall ill in this vibrant but harsh world. You've caught something, a cough, a fever, or maybe a strange ache in your side. You won't find help at a hospital because, well, hospitals don't exist. Instead, you're left with a handful of options: a neighbor with experience, a healer with herbs, or perhaps divine intervention. Unless you live near Kos and happen to cross paths with someone trained in the methods of Hippocrates, you're relying on folk medicine and hope. Maybe a neighbor recommends garlic boiled in wine. Maybe a temple priest offers a charm to appease Asclepius. If you're lucky, someone brings you a compress soaked in vinegar. If you're not lucky, they might try to balance your humors by draining your blood. You don't have antibiotics, no pain relievers, no knowledge of germs. What you have is tradition and trial. And if things get worse, if the fever spikes or the wound festers, then you wait. Death is not rare, it's familiar. And in ancient Greece, the gods take just as many lives as they save. Still, there's beauty in the belief system, even if it's terrifying. Illness is seen not as random, but as meaningful, a sign of imbalance, a message from the gods, a consequence of disharmony. Healing is both physical and spiritual. It's ceremony, prayer, and diet. If you're sick, you might be sent to bathe in a spring, sleep in a sacred temple, or eat a prescribed mix of figs, barley, and olive oil. Will it work? Possibly. If it doesn't, no one's surprised. But life moves on. Maybe you recover. Maybe the gods smile on you. Either way, you rise again, hungry and worn, and try to find comfort in the things that bring joy in a difficult world. One of those joys, the theater. The Athenian theater is not just entertainment, it's a marathon of human emotion. You gather at dawn with thousands of others, crammed into the great stone theater of Dionysus. It's festival time, and drama is a civic duty. You sit shoulder to shoulder under the blinding sun, waiting to be moved, shattered, or amused. First come the tragedies, long, intense plays full of murder, betrayal, and divine punishment. You're not here to laugh. You're here to weep in public. The actors wear huge masks with exaggerated expressions and deliver lines that echo across marble. The chorus sings and dances between acts, narrating the emotional tide like a living conscience. Then come the comedies, crude, clever, and blisteringly political. They mock everything from the government to your bodily habits. One moment you're wiping away tears, the next you're laughing at a character with a 20-foot papyrem cheerfulness. No one is safe from satire. Not generals, not philosophers, not even the gods. You don't just watch, you respond. You cheer, boo, throw olives if the play offends you. It's democratic, chaotic, and deeply cathartic. And at the end of the festival, a jury votes on the best playwright. It's the Oscars, but with togas and fewer filters. After hours of emotional whiplash from tragedy and comedy, you stagger out of the theater, sunburned, drained, and oddly more connected to your city than you were before. The communal nature of it all, the weeping, the shouting, the laughter, it's not just entertainment. It's democracy on display, with masks and music. You've shared something ancient and primal, and now it's time to rejoin the chaos of daily life in the agora. The agora is where business, politics, gossip, and philosophy collide. Merchants shout about fresh olives and dyed cloth, while thinkers like Plato hold court beside a produce stand. You're just trying to buy some lentils, but someone's asking you whether justice is a construct or a virtue. You nod politely and move on, hoping the fishmonger doesn't join in with a quote from Heraclitus. Philosophy here isn't quiet or private. It's loud, intrusive, and oddly charismatic. Socrates, for instance, isn't holding classes. He's ambushing passersby with questions. What is courage? He asks. You answer, and suddenly you're trapped in a 3-hour conversation about the soul. It's thrilling and exhausting, and it makes you long for the comfort of silent chores. And there are plenty of those. If you're a woman, your day has never really paused. While men debate in the agora or cheer at the theater, you're still in the home, spinning wool, weaving cloth, and managing a household. You're expected to stay indoors, especially in Athens, where too much visibility equals suspicion. Freedom exists, but only within walls. Even at home, your life is governed by rituals. There are gods to honor, sacrifices to make, and household altars to tend. The gods aren't gentle. They demand loyalty and attention. Forget to pour a libation to the right deity before a journey, and your ship might sink. Anger Hera, and your marriage could unravel. Divine wrath is a daily concern. Greek religion is everywhere. It's sewn into the fabric of life, from planting crops to building homes to launching wars. Every city-state has its own patron deity. Athens worships Athena, goddess of wisdom and warfare. Her temple, the Parthenon, looms over the city like a stone guardian, reminding everyone who's really in charge. But the gods are fickle. They love, punish, protect, and destroy without warning. They interfere in human affairs constantly, granting visions, sending plagues, or striking people down with lightning bolts. You don't worship them out of love. You worship them out of necessity. They are powerful, volatile, and often terrifying. And when life becomes too overwhelming, you visit their temples. You offer sacrifices, wine, grain, maybe even a goat, hoping to tip the scales in your favor. You light incense, say prayers, and watch as the smoke rises toward the heavens. Whether it reaches anyone is unknown, but you do it anyway, because not doing it is worse. So here you are, half philosopher, half survivor. You endure public debate, private ritual, and the ever-present fear of offending a god you forgot to thank. And somehow it's only midday in ancient Greece. By midday, the heat is relentless. The sun sits high above the tiled rooftops and dusty olive groves, and your linen tunic feels more like a damp towel clinging to your skin. You long for shade, but your chores are far from done. If you're a craftsman, you're back at your workshop, hammering bronze, shaping pottery, or carving marble. If you're a farmer, you're laboring in the fields, barefoot on scorched earth, guiding oxen or harvesting grain under a sky that seems determined to cook you alive. And if you're a woman, you're still managing the invisible labor of the home. Bread needs baking, thread needs spinning, children need wrangling, the fire needs tending. And if you're wealthy enough to own slaves, you're still overseeing their work, ensuring the oil is pressed, the grain is ground, and the meals are prepared. There are no days off. Rest is a luxury. Most women don't even leave their homes without male accompaniment. The walls are both shelter and prison. If you happen to be a child, your experience depends on your gender and class. Boys in Athens begin education around the age of 7. They're taught reading, writing, arithmetic, music, and gymnastics. Some even study under philosophers or rhetoricians. Education is preparation for citizenship, how to speak, how to fight, how to vote. Girls, on the other hand, stay home. Their lessons come from their mothers, how to cook, clean, manage a household, and serve the gods. Literacy is rare, and higher learning is unheard of. The mind is not seen as a girl's battlefield. Her war is fought in silence, in domestic duties, in social restraint. But not all Greek cities agree. In Sparta, girls are encouraged to run, wrestle, and even speak in public. Spartan society believes strong mothers birth strong warriors. So while Athenian girls are hidden behind latticed windows, Spartan girls train outdoors. It's not feminism, it's militarism. Still, it gives them a voice unheard elsewhere. Back in the cities, politics continues. Men gather in the ecclesia, the Athenian assembly, to debate laws, war, and trade. There are no microphones, no chairs, just voices echoing across stone courtyards. It's loud, chaotic, and passionately democratic. Any citizen may speak. But remember, citizen means adult male of Athenian birth. If you're a woman, a slave, or a foreigner, your opinions aren't just ignored, they're forbidden. Yet even within that narrow circle of citizenship, equality is a stretch. Wealthy men wield more influence. Well-spoken orators dominate discussions, and behind every decision lies the ever-present fear of demagoguery, of someone gaining too much power too fast. That's why ostracism exists. It's not paranoia, it's policy. As the sun begins to dip, the city breathes differently. The light softens. People retreat indoors. The streets quiet, except for the clinking of amphorae and the distant sound of lyres. Dinner is on the horizon, but don't expect comfort. Your evening meal is simple. More barley bread, maybe lentil stew, a few olives, if you're lucky. If you're very fortunate, a bit of salted fish. You eat quickly, perhaps reclining if you're wealthy, but more likely sitting on the ground with your back against a wall. There's no silverware, just fingers and bread. For women and children, the meal often comes last, after the men. The food is filling, but plain, no sugar, no spices, just sustenance. And still, the day isn't done. As night settles over the city, casting long shadows across marble columns and cracked stone streets, the temperature finally begins to dip. The cicadas grow quiet. The gods sleep, or at least, you hope they do. For many, the evening is a time for companionship, reflection, or a final round of duties before sleep. If you're a man of means, you might be invited to a symposium, despite its modern association with academic lectures. In ancient Greece, a symposium is a social gathering for elite men, a blend of drinking, party, debate club, and philosophical exercise. Reclining on couches in a wealthy patron's home, the guests sip diluted wine from ornate cups, discuss politics, flirt with ideas and with each other, and occasionally break into song or riddle contests. There's music, flutes, lyres, and sometimes a hired courtesan to perform or entertain. These events can range from deeply intellectual to outrageously obscene. But women, unless they are entertainers or companions known as hetairai, are not welcome. Respectable wives remain at home, their worlds entirely separate from these male rituals. For the rest of the city, there's no such indulgence. Most people finish chores, douse their hearth fires, and settle in for the night. The city dims as oil lamps flicker inside clay homes. The streets fall mostly silent, save for the occasional dog's bark or distant clatter of sandals on cobblestone. Beds are simple, a straw-stuffed mat or a wooden frame with cloth straps, if you're fortunate. There are no blankets, unless you've woven your own. No pillows, just a rolled-up cloak. Sleep is not guaranteed to be restful. Lice, fleas, and the aches of a hard day's labor keep many tossing. In the colder months, the same walls that baked you in summer now trap cold like a tomb. Before sleep, many households perform simple rituals, libations poured to household gods, short prayers muttered to the divine. You don't want to sleep without honoring the gods. A bad dream might mean more than indigestion. It might mean you forgot someone, a nymph, a spirit, a slighted ancestor. The Greeks believed deeply in omens, in messages delivered through dreams, birds, and the shifting of the stars. And even in dreams, philosophy isn't far. You might hear echoes of Plato discussing the soul's journey, or Aristotle pondering purpose. Ideas seep into sleep just as much as prayers. But not every night is quiet. A neighbor might be giving birth, and without proper medicine, childbirth is a perilous venture. Or there might be a funeral in the distance, marked by ritual laments and wailing. Death is never far, and in ancient Greece, everyone knows it. You lie in the dark, your tunic twisted under you, your mind drifting between the gods above and the aches below. And as sleep finally pulls at your limbs, you wonder if you'll rise with the sun again, if the gods will allow it, if your body holds out, if the city remains at peace for one more day. You wouldn't last a day in ancient Greece, you just did. But night comes fast, and tomorrow will test you all over again. Morning returns, not gently, but with the persistence of a civilization that doesn't pause. The sun pushes through wooden shutters, lighting the dust in the air like golden smoke. Roosters call from rooftops. Somewhere, a goat begins its morning complaint. Your body aches. Sleep wasn't restful, just the absence of labor. Still, you rise, because, in ancient Greece, no one waits for comfort. You rub your face with cold water from a clay jug. Your tunic, reused for days, smells of sweat and olive oil. You step outside into air already warming, past stone walls streaked with soot and generations of wear. The street greets you with its usual orchestra, sandals slapping stone, pots clanging, merchants shouting, dogs barking. Everything is in motion. And today, perhaps, is market day. The agora is alive with activity. Baskets of figs, amphorae of wine, coils of garlic, and blocks of pungent cheese line makeshift stalls. Artisans shout their prices, haggling over lengths of linen or bundles of fish. The crowd is a mix, citizens, foreigners, slaves. Everyone is here, from philosophers to pickpockets. Somewhere among the noise, a political debate erupts. Two men, cloaks thrown over their shoulders, argue over naval funding or grain imports. A few others join in, raising hands and voices. In Athens, this is normal. Every opinion has an audience. Every conversation a potential law. But for you, survival means navigating this crowd without losing your goods or your patience. You pass beggars with outstretched hands, a flute player breathing life into reed melodies, and a priest calling for donations to Artemis. You offer a coin just in case. The gods are everywhere, and offending one, even accidentally, could spell disaster. Later, you pass a line of boys in short chittons reciting Homer under a tutor's watchful eye. Education in ancient Greece is more than letters. It's memory, rhetoric, poise. Young boys recite verses, not from paper, but from deep recall. Girls, unseen here, learn different lessons behind closed doors. Farther along, you pass the gymnasium, noisy, full of laughter and effort. Men train naked, muscles gleaming with sweat and oil. This is not just for vanity. Physical fitness is civic virtue. A strong body reflects a strong soul. Wrestling, running, discus, each act is a step toward honor and possibly warfare. Warfare is never distant. A herald shouts the news of a skirmish near the borders. A list of fallen names is posted near the assembly. You stop for a moment to read them. Brothers, sons, friends of friends. Every city-state is locked in some rivalry. Peace is always temporary. And then, beneath all this movement, a street performer balances on one foot atop a jug, lyre in hand, singing a humorous ballad about Dionysus getting drunk and falling into the sea. Laughter ripples through the crowd. For a moment, the burdens lift. This is Greece, alive, conflicted, brilliant, and exhausting. You're only a few hours into your second day, and already the world demands everything you have: your energy, your voice, your attention, and your constant negotiation between reverence and resilience. As the sun climbs toward its unforgiving zenith, you realize that time in ancient Greece is not tracked by clocks, but by shadows and sweat. There is no wristwatch ticking down your morning. You simply know it's midday when the shade retreats and the city slows. Even the gods, it seems, rest at noon. For many, this is a brief pause, an interlude from the relentless motion. Shopkeepers lean in their doorways. Farmers take cover under olive trees. Children nap in corners. You find yourself hunched against a wall, drinking watered-down wine to stay hydrated, chewing on a piece of dry bread you didn't enjoy this morning and won't enjoy now. Hunger in ancient Greece isn't about taste, it's about survival. Yet for others, the day never slows. The slaves continue, always. They fill amphorae, sweep courtyards, tend the hearths, and carry goods from one part of the city to another. Their labor is the pulse of the polis, unseen and unthanked. You hear the sound of footsteps behind you, bare feet moving faster than sandals ever do, and glimpse a boy no older than 12 carrying a stack of clay jars. He doesn't speak, he doesn't pause, he simply passes, disappearing into another alley of expectation. There's no sentimentality here. Even among philosophers who debate ethics, the existence of slavery is considered natural, necessary. It's the paradox of ancient Greece, a society that gives the world justice and simultaneously denies it to most of its inhabitants. You pull yourself back to your feet, joining the slow trickle of people heading toward afternoon duties. Maybe you're a potter, returning to your kiln where heat becomes unbearable. Maybe you're a fisher, stringing your nets under the burning sky, hoping for a decent catch. Or maybe you're part of a construction crew, stacking stones and mortar as temples rise toward the gods who never sweat. For the elite, the afternoon may hold different rhythms, a lesson with a tutor, a walk through a shaded colonnade, or the leisure of writing verse on a wax tablet. But for the majority, it is labor, always labor. Even the tasks tied to beauty are rooted in work. Someone must pick the saffron that dyes fine cloth. Someone must carve the statue of Apollo from hard marble. Someone must carry the heavy bucket of water up 3 flights of stone steps for a woman to wash her feet. If you're wealthy, that someone isn't you. If you're not, well, you know the answer. And then, as the shadows grow long again, you sense a shift in the city's rhythm. The marketplace stirs once more. The air cools ever so slightly, and thoughts turn toward evening. But before rest, before sleep, there's one final ritual to perform. One that speaks volumes about ancient Greek identity and obsession, the symposium. And if you're lucky or unlucky, you might be invited tonight. Evening draws in with a slow grace, painting the whitewashed walls of the city in deep amber. Oil lamps begin to flicker in courtyards and doorways. The day's noise softens, replaced by the murmur of preparation. And for a certain class of men, something special is on the horizon, the symposium. The symposium is not a casual get-together. It is ritualized, exclusive, and, for those permitted to attend, a defining aspect of Greek male culture. It takes place in the andron, the men's quarters of a wealthy home, where couches line the walls and guests recline, sipping wine, speaking in low, measured tones, at least at first. Only adult male citizens are invited. Women are barred, unless they are entertainers, dancers, or hetairai, sophisticated companions trained in music, poetry, and conversation. Respectable wives, even of the host, remain invisible behind doors. The evening begins with libations. Wine is mixed with water in a large crater, a communal bowl. Drinking unmixed wine is considered barbaric. It is not about getting drunk, at least not initially. It's about moderation, wit, balance, the Greek ideals of self-control and civility. As the wine flows, so does conversation. Topics range from the serious, politics, love, the nature of virtue, to the absurd. You might be asked to debate which god throws the best party, or whether courage is a learned skill or a divine gift. The tone shifts with every refill. What starts as refined discussion often descends into games, song, or outrageous toasts. And when the night grows deep, laughter loud, and the wine sweet, decorum sometimes gives way to spectacle. A musician plucks the lyre. Someone recites a verse from Sappho, Another belts a drinking song while standing on one leg. Masks may appear. A clay cup gets passed around for a game of kotabos, where players flick wine dregs at a target. There's a sense that anything can happen, and often does. But beneath the revelry is a deeper structure. The symposium isn't just leisure, it's cultural reinforcement. Here, young men learn how to behave, how to argue, how to belong. It's a space where values are debated and social bonds are reinforced. It's also where rivalries are born, alliances forged, reputations made or ruined over the course of an evening. Meanwhile, outside these elite walls, the rest of the city winds down. Artisans finish tidying their workshops. Families huddle together for dinner, usually bread and stew, and settle into shared silence. Fires are doused, doors are barred. In the women's quarters, the work rarely ends. Clothes are folded, lamps are checked, children are soothed. And as sleep slowly blankets the city, only the soft echo of flute music and the occasional peal of laughter from a symposium breaks the stillness. You, reclining on a woven couch, half-full cup in hand, suddenly realize the room is spinning, not from the wine, but from the sheer intensity of existing in this world. A world where every moment is laced with philosophy, formality, and fatigue. A world of hierarchy and harmony, sometimes broken, often enforced. And tomorrow, it will all begin again. At dawn, the revelers from the symposium either stumble home in silence or remain where they fell asleep. The city, however, has no patience for hangovers. The roosters crow. The olive vendors roll out their carts, and life resumes without pause, indifferent to how little rest you managed. You wash your face at the public fountain, blinking against the light. The streets are already stirring. Women are lighting fires, kneading bread, checking jars of lentils and olives. Men are checking the sky, wondering whether the weather will hold for sea travel, farming, or marble work. Every gesture, every routine chore is part of the cycle that binds this city together. If you're a tradesman, your tools are already in your hand. You carve, chisel, fire, shape. The work is repetitive but vital. Artisans in ancient Greece are respected for their skill, but rarely elevated in status. The potter whose vase ends up in a wealthy home still eats with his hands, still sleeps on a woven mat. Meanwhile, if you're a shipbuilder, your day is long and loud. The Athenian navy is the pride of the city, and behind every glorious trireme are months of labor. Wood soaked and bent, ropes woven, bronze pounded into nails and fittings. Salt and sweat are stitched into the hull before it ever hits the water. Maritime trade, too, is booming. The port of Piraeus is a tangle of ships, merchants, and foreign goods. Spices from the east, papyrus from Egypt, tin from Britain, and slaves from anywhere war has touched. Athens is a marketplace of ideas and a crossroads of commerce. It's cosmopolitan, but not exactly inclusive. Foreigners, called medics, can live and work in Athens, but never vote, never own land, never fully belong. And if you're one of those medics, your life is a balancing act. You're needed, yet kept at arm's length. You pay a special tax. You must register. You are protected by law, but never trusted entirely. Still, for many, the opportunity is worth the limitation. Better to be a craftsman in Athens than a nobody in a war-torn village. Back in the city center, another assembly gathers. It's not the political ecclesia, but a courtroom. Justice in Athens is participatory. Trials are heard by massive juries. sometimes hundreds of citizens, chosen by lot. There are no lawyers, no judges in robes. You argue your own case, you bring your own witnesses. The jury listens, votes with secret tokens, and their decision is final. Justice here is loud, passionate, and public. A wrong word can ruin your reputation. A clever speech can save your life, and the boundary between rhetoric and truth, often as thin as a reed scroll. If you're a spectator, you watch with the same intensity you bring to theater. Because in Athens, the courtroom and the stage are not so different. Both are arenas of drama, persuasion, and spectacle. And so the hours pass. The city moves in waves. Labor, speech, ritual, pause, labor again. Every citizen knows their role. Every outsider feels the weight of their difference. And every day in ancient Greece continues with a rhythm that is both predictable and exhausting, casting short shadows and baking the city's limestone walls until they shimmer with heat. You pause in an alley, stealing a sliver of shade beside a goat, chewing indifferently on something that may or may not be edible. There's no relief indoors. Homes are designed for ventilation, not comfort. The stone floors help, but only slightly. You take another gulp of warm, watered wine and prepare for what's next. This might be the hour when you attend a funeral. Death in ancient Greece is not a private affair. It's public, ritualistic, and highly symbolic. The dead are washed, anointed with oil, and wrapped in linen, often by the women of the family. Wailing is expected, loud, dramatic, almost theatrical. It's not about hiding grief, it's about displaying it. The body is laid out for a wake, sometimes for a full day, allowing friends and family to pay their respects. Mourners bring offerings, oil, honey, wine, or small tokens. Then, at dawn, the body is carried in a procession, on foot or by cart, to its resting place. The burial is accompanied by chants and prayers, ensuring the spirit reaches the underworld safely. Coins are placed on the eyes or in the mouth to pay Charon, the ferryman of Hades. Without them, it's believed the soul will wander the shores of the Styx for eternity. Burial is not just a farewell, it's a spiritual necessity. The unburied are considered restless, cursed. Even enemies are sometimes buried by those who vanquished them to prevent divine retaliation. If you're rich, your tomb might be adorned with marble carvings, stoic faces, and flowing robes frozen in stone. If you're poor, a simple mound or urn suffices. But regardless of wealth, death is a great equalizer. Everyone ends up in Hades. Gods do not grant heaven. Only a rare few, heroes and demigods, ascend to the Isles of the Blessed. Back among the living, the city carries on. You pass by a group of young men training at the palestra, where wrestling, discus, and javelin throwing shape both muscle and character. Greek ideals prize physical perfection as much as mental prowess. Statues of athletes, their bodies impossibly idealized, stand in courtyards and sanctuaries. They aren't just admired, they're aspirational. Nearby, an older man recites Homer's Iliad from memory to a crowd of students seated cross-legged in the dust. You stop and listen. The rhythm of the verse, the fury of Achilles, the fall of Troy, it's hypnotic. These stories are more than entertainment. They're moral instruction, national identity, and a link to the divine. Children memorize them before they can write their own names. In this world, myth and reality are braided tightly. The gods interfere in war. Heroes walk beside mortals. And if your life is hard, it's because somewhere someone displeased a deity. Fate is not questioned, it's respected. You are not the author of your life. At best, you're a character in a story larger than yourself. And so you keep walking, not because you have answers, but because motion itself is a kind of survival. And in ancient Greece, surviving is often the only kind of victory you're allowed. As the golden hour sets in, casting a soft glow on terracotta rooftops and marble columns, the city seems to breathe differently. The buzz of daily toil gives way to something quieter, more introspective. The temperature dips just enough for people to step back out into the open. The agora, once a hotbed of argument and transaction, transforms into a social commons. Still noisy, still alive, but gentler. Children play in the dust with handmade dolls and carved toys. An old man hums a sea shanty, tapping his cane in rhythm. A woman carries a basket of herbs, her face drawn from years of heat and labor, but still upright, still proud. These moments are not celebrated in epics or etched into stone, but they are the true rhythm of life in Greece. Survival with grace. You find yourself near a shrine at the street corner, small, weathered, and decorated with fresh sprigs of laurel. A family approaches it with reverence. The father pours a splash of wine, the mother lights a taper. The children, wide-eyed and silent, place figs at its base. This isn't a festival, it's routine. Everyday religion in Greece is personal, constant, and local. You don't need a temple to reach a god, just belief, ritual, and humility. Suddenly, a commotion draws your attention. A traveling performer has set up in the square, a one-man show, with a painted mask and a bag of tricks. He sings, mimics, juggles, and recites satirical poems that poke fun at the polis and its politicians. People gather in a loose circle, laughing, clapping, jeering. The Greeks love drama in all forms, not just in theaters, but in the open air. Even mockery is art. There's a freedom in it, but also a risk. Satire is tolerated to a point. Go too far, and the crowd turns. Or worse, the wrong person listens. In a society where public reputation is everything, laughter can elevate or destroy. Still, performance is one of the few ways the poor can rise. A clever comic or a charismatic singer might find patronage, but for most, art is a calling without comfort. You may die poor, but remembered, or just poor. As twilight deepens, the city gathers for evening meals. It's nothing lavish, usually the same barley, cheese, or lentil stew, but there's comfort in the ritual. Food is eaten with fingers, shared from communal bowls. Conversations meander from politics to philosophy, to gossip about the baker's son, or speculation about the next grain shipment from Egypt. If you're a guest in someone's home, etiquette is strict. Wash your hands. Don't speak over your host. Leave a libation for the gods. Hospitality is sacred. An offense against a guest is an offense against Zeus himself. This is Xenia, the Greek code of hospitality. Violating it could bring divine wrath. As you finish your last mouthful of bread, you look up to the hills where torchlight flickers. Somewhere in the Acropolis above, priests tend sacred fires. Even in darkness, the gods are awake. And as the stars emerge, one by one, over Athens, Sparta, or Thebes, you're reminded again, this isn't just a place. It's a world of myth, sweat, song, and struggle. And you're still here, still standing, still trying to understand it all. Night in ancient Greece is never truly silent. The crickets and frogs begin their chorus. The scent of burnt olive oil drifts from extinguished lamps. Somewhere, a lyre plays softly in the distance, its strings tugging at the quiet like whispers between gods and mortals. If you're a traveler, you're seeking shelter now. Inns are rare and usually terrible, dark, crowded, often full of fleas and suspicious glances. Hospitality, the sacred xenia, is your best hope. You knock on doors. Sometimes you're turned away. Sometimes you're given a crust of bread and a corner of the floor. If the host is pious, they'll share their wine and ask nothing in return, except that you offer the same one day to another stranger. And if you're not lucky, you sleep beneath the stars, wrapped in a cloak, hoping no snake or thief finds you before dawn. Even the gods, it seems, have different rules for wanderers. Back in the city, some homes are still lit. A philosopher teaches by candlelight. His students sit cross-legged, eyes wide, absorbing lessons about the soul, the cosmos, or ethics. In a world without screens or printed books, the voice is everything. You learn by listening, repeating, remembering. Elsewhere, a sculptor is finishing a marble statue by moonlight. Chisel strikes echo faintly down alleyways. The work is slow, reverent. Each curve of muscle or fold of cloth is carved with obsessive precision. This isn't art for art's sake. It's tribute, devotion, a gift to the gods, or a monument to a mortal's fleeting glory. In another corner of the city, a couple of drunk youths sing off-key as they stumble home from a late-night gathering. They wake a dog, who sets off a chain reaction of barking down the street. An old woman yells something unrepeatable from her window. The city is tired, but not done. Somewhere far above, nestled on the rocky crown of the Acropolis, stands the Parthenon. Even in darkness, its silhouette dominates the skyline. It is not just a temple. It is a symbol of power, of identity, of devotion. Inside rests the massive statue of Athena, plated in ivory and gold, her spear tip catching torchlight like a distant star. She watches the city below with stern, eternal eyes. Athena is not a gentle goddess. She is wisdom and war fused into one. She blesses the cunning, the brave, the calculated. To thrive under her gaze is to work relentlessly and think strategically. You don't pray to her for comfort. You pray for victory. And beneath that gaze, you settle down at last, wrapping your cloak tighter, laying on a hard mat or a patch of earth. The night breeze brings a shiver, and you whisper a final prayer, not for riches, not for fame, but simply to wake again in the morning with limbs unbroken and fate unturned. In this land of heroes and hunger, that alone is a blessing. Morning returns without ceremony. There are no alarms, no gentle music, just the stirring of animals, the chatter of birds, and the grind of life revving back into motion. You open your eyes to the pale blue of dawn, stiff from your sleeping mat or the cold stone beneath your blanket. The fire's embers have long gone out. It's time to begin again. You step outside, rubbing sleep from your eyes. The streets are already active. A woman sweeps dust from her doorstep with a bundle of reeds. A boy chases a runaway chicken. From a nearby roof, a pot crashes to the ground. No one flinches. In this world, noise is life. Stillness is something reserved for statues and graves. You walk to the fountain to wash your hands and face. The water is cool, almost bracing, and you take a moment to stare into your reflection. There are no mirrors for most people. What little you glimpse of yourself comes from puddles, bronze bowls, and fleeting shadows. Vanity, when it exists, is the luxury of the wealthy. Nearby, women fill jars with water and gossip quietly. Their roles in the city are rigid but crucial. While Athens shuts them out of politics, they command the private realm, organizing food, children, offerings, and the running of the home. But theirs is also a life of caution. Too much laughter in public, too much time outside, and the neighbors whisper. Reputation in ancient Greece is currency, and for women, it's often their only form of power. If you're a slave, your day began even earlier. You've already swept the floors, drawn the water, fed the animals, and lit the fires. You may be heading to the market now with your master's list, or helping him put on his cloak for a visit to a magistrate. You are both present and invisible. Beaten, sold, or inherited, your status is property, no matter how clever, skilled, or loyal you are. But there are cracks in the stone. A few slaves rise to comfort. A scribe, a physician, a steward. Some are so skilled they become indispensable. Some even earn their freedom. But for most, life is labor without recognition, existence without identity. As you return to your work, be it in a field, a workshop, or at a temple gate, you pass a group of soldiers drilling in formation. Spears clack in unison, sandals stomp in rhythm, and commands echo in sharp Dorian tones. These are hoplites, citizen soldiers trained from youth to defend their polis. War is never far in ancient Greece. City-states feud constantly over land, pride, or simply the cycle of revenge. You may be called to serve one day, to hold a round bronze shield in a phalanx line, your neighbor's shield, protecting your body and yours, guarding his. You don't fight alone. You don't fight for glory. You fight because it is expected, and because not fighting means disgrace, worse than death in many eyes. As the soldiers march off, a vendor calls out prices for dried figs, and a girl chases after a lost sandal. You are reminded, again, every person in this world, no matter how low or high, plays a role in a machine that never stops turning. There is no retirement, no luxury of stepping aside. Only rhythm, only duty, only the gods. By midday, the marketplace is once again a blur of motion and sound. Men debating, vendors yelling, donkeys braying under the weight of olive oil jars and amphorae of wine. You walk through the agora, your feet coated in dust, your tunic damp with sweat. This is the beating heart of the city, and it never truly rests. You can't either. In one corner, a man in a patched cloak speaks to a gathering of wide-eyed youths. He's old, barefoot, and strange, but his words cut through the noise. The unexamined life is not worth living, he says. Socrates, again, always asking questions, making you uncomfortable, making you think. Some call him a genius, others call him dangerous. And indeed, this society that celebrates free speech and debate is often quick to silence voices it deems too radical. Socrates himself will one day be sentenced to death for corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods. That's the irony of Athens. It invented democracy and poisoned one of its greatest thinkers. Here, thought is revered and feared in equal measure. Further along, a troupe of actors rehearses a play under the sun. They wear masks of exaggerated expression, tragedy and comedy, pain and joy, and you pause to watch. One actor mimics a haughty nobleman, the others howl with laughter. Satire is alive and well in Greece. Even powerful leaders are fair game for ridicule. at least in the theater. Yet, theater is more than entertainment. It's education, civic duty, even therapy. Through plays, Greeks examine love, war, pride, betrayal, and fate. The works of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides aren't merely stories. They're reflections of the human soul, presented in verse and thunderous chorus, often funded by the wealthy as a public service and a path to prestige. If you're a citizen, you're expected to attend. If you're poor, the city might even pay your admission, because in ancient Greece, culture is part of citizenship. You aren't just a voter. You are an audience, a participant in the moral dialogue of the city. Elsewhere, near the temple steps, a young man leads a goat toward an altar. A small crowd gathers. The priest mutters prayers, sprinkles barley, and offers a brief song. The goat is calm, then not. Its blood splashes into a stone basin. The smell rises. The sacrifice is meant to appease the gods, to ask for a good harvest, a safe journey, or healing. And while the act is routine, the moment is sacred. The Greeks live in constant negotiation with their deities, not in blind fear, but in practical reverence. Every decision, every venture, every meal is tied in some way to divine favor. There's no separation between the spiritual and the mundane. They are braided tightly, like the strands of a rope, keeping a ship from drifting into ruin. And as the sun lowers toward the hills, casting long shadows through marble colonnades, you realize this world is overwhelming, not because it's primitive, but because it's alive. Every moment is charged with meaning, whether in words, sacrifice, or silence. You're exhausted, but there's more to see, and the gods aren't done watching. As twilight stretches across the sky, the city of Athens begins to shift once again. The air cools, but the atmosphere is anything but sleepy. This is the hour when the thinkers, teachers, and wanderers come alive. The quiet corners of courtyards and stoas now host conversations that ripple through the centuries. You walk past a group of students gathered around a low stone bench. Their teacher, calm and composed, wears a plain cloak and carries no scroll. His words are slow but heavy with meaning. He asks questions, not to test, but to guide. What is justice? What makes a good life? It's Plato, or someone who learned from him. Here, philosophy is not a subject, it's a way of being. You listen for a moment, caught between awe and confusion. This world demands more than labor. It asks for thought. It prizes the examined life, even if the answers never come. And for a brief moment, you envy those who get to ponder ideals instead of kneading dough or heaving stones. But your envy fades as you spot a beggar by the steps of the temple. He holds out a hand, palm up, eyes down, no coins, no bread, just dust. Even in a society that values balance, the scales often tip unfairly. Some are born into discussion, others into desperation. And yet both are part of the same city, breathing the same air, under the same gods. Across the square, torches begin to glow. They flicker in iron sconces and clay bowls filled with olive oil. Shadows dance on painted walls. The outlines of gods, Apollo, Dionysus, Athena, seem to move as the flames crackle. The city is alive in its art. Murals and statues are not decorative. They're declarations of belief, of power, of identity. Near a pottery stall, you see a vase being finished. The artisan drags a stylus across the clay, etching the final curls of a myth. Perhaps Theseus slaying the Minotaur, or Heracles battling the Hydra. These images are stories, but also instruction. Heroes are not just admired, they're imitated. Their flaws are lessons, their pain, prophecy. Back at your dwelling, your evening meal awaits. It's nothing more than lentils with herbs and a heel of bread. If you're lucky, a fig or two. Meat is rare, unless there's a festival or a sacrifice. For most Greeks, food is functional, not indulgent. Meals are short, prayers are long, and waste is a kind of sacrilege. Before sleep, you light a small flame in your household shrine. Maybe it's to Hestia, goddess of the hearth, or Hermes, guardian of travelers. A few drops of wine are poured. A murmured plea, goo. In this world, forgetting the gods is more dangerous than hunger or injury. And as you lie down, wrapped in a rough cloak on a straw mat, you listen to the distant hum of a flute, a child's laughter, a dog's bark. It's a simple life. It's a brutal life, but it is also one of connection between the stars above, the myths behind, and the moments unfolding. You may not belong here, but for tonight, you endure. A new dawn arrives in ancient Greece, and with it comes the smell of bread baking. Fires relit from coals, saved the night before, and the low murmur of people returning to their daily rhythm. The city doesn't wake up so much as it carries on, its pulse uninterrupted. For you, another day means another test of endurance in a place where nothing is handed freely and everything has meaning. You make your way to the agora once more, navigating the familiar maze of marble steps and dusty courtyards. A merchant waves you over, displaying foreign trinkets, tiny glass beads from Phoenicia, bronze combs from Egypt, tin mirrors from the north. Ancient Greece may be proud and self-contained, but its cities are deeply connected to the wider world through trade, travel, and war. You realize that the polis isn't isolated. It's a node in a vast web of civilizations, constantly borrowing, selling, adapting. At the edge of the agora stands a temple dedicated to Apollo. You watch as a procession arrives, a family carrying laurel branches and a small white goat. Their faces are solemn. They walk barefoot. Inside the sanctuary, the air is thick with incense and reverence. Offerings line the altar, honey cakes, fruit, coins. Religion here is participatory, physical. You don't just believe, you show your devotion with presence and sacrifice. Not far from the temple, a man with a stylus writes a message on a wax tablet. He's a scribe, and his services aren't cheap. Literacy is prized, but not common. Most Greeks can speak eloquently, even persuasively, but few can write. Reading is a skill for the privileged, for philosophers and bureaucrats. If you need something recorded, a contract, a letter, a debt, you pay someone to do it. Suddenly, a group of young men run past in full sprint. They're naked, oiled, and lean as deer. They train for the next Pan-Hellenic Games, perhaps the Olympic Games at Olympia, or the Pythian Games in Delphi. These athletic contests are sacred, held in honor of the gods, especially Zeus. Winning brings fame not only to the athlete, but to his entire city. In Greek society, sport is not just exercise, it's worship, identity, legacy. A victory wreath is a crown of glory. But only men compete. Women are banned from the games. Even watching them is forbidden to married women. Their own athletic contests exist, like the Heraean Games, but they're lesser known, held in different venues, with fewer honors. As the runners disappear around a corner, a chorus of flute notes cuts through the midday noise. Music in ancient Greece isn't background, it's foundational. From battlefields to banquets, rituals to funerals, music frames emotion. You hear a young girl plucking a kithora with concentration, her teacher nodding approvingly nearby. Music is math, poetry, and spirituality fused into one. The Greeks believe it can heal the soul, order the cosmos, or incite madness, depending on how it's played. Even education includes musical training, because shaping the ear, they believe, shapes the soul. And in that moment, as you absorb the melody, mingling with the market cries and the stamp of sandals on stone, you begin to understand this world isn't primitive. It's layered, structured, alive. Every act is woven into culture. Every life is a thread in a complex, brilliant tapestry. And you're just trying to find your place in it. Afternoon presses down again, the kind that makes marble feel like it's burning and linen stick to your back. You find shade where you can, beneath the wooden beams of a stoa or beneath an awning outside a taverna. The pace of the city slows, but never fully stops. Somewhere nearby, a rooster crows out of rhythm, and someone curses at it half-heartedly. It's a strange comfort. You sit beside an old man chewing olives and sipping watered wine from a ceramic cup. He doesn't speak at first. Then, with no warning, he begins reciting Homer, not as performance, but as memory. His voice cracks on the names of fallen warriors, but the cadence is perfect. For him and many others, the Iliad and Odyssey are more than epics. They're scripture, history, and identity, bound in verse. These stories are everywhere, in wall paintings, in classroom recitations, in casual metaphors. You hear someone say, "He's no Achilles," with a sneer. Even in casual insult, myth is the language. To be Greek is to know these tales, to live in their long shadow. A loud clang breaks the spell. Down the road, blacksmiths are hard at work. The ring of hammer on bronze, echoing like a war drum, sparks fly. The smiths are soot-streaked and shirtless, their hands hardened into tools themselves. Metal is everywhere here. Armor, coins, nails, jewelry. The strength of the city is forged in fire and sweat, and these men shape its spine. Across from the forge, you spot a philosopher pacing in a courtyard, arms waving dramatically as he explains something to a few wide-eyed followers. His topic, the motion of the stars, or the nature of the soul, or maybe whether motion is even real. The Greeks aren't just inventing philosophy, they're obsessed with it. Competing schools spring up across the city, the academy, the lyceum, the cynics, the stoics. Each one proposes a different path to truth. You realize that in this world, asking questions is an art. Answers are secondary. Inquiry is divine. Nearby, a woman picks through grapes at a stall. She doesn't speak, keeps her eyes low, counts her coins carefully. Married or unmarried, her freedom is limited. In Athens, respectable women stay indoors, away from the eyes of strangers. Her presence here alone draws glances, not hostility, just silent judgment. Her life is regulated by custom more than law. But in Sparta, not far to the south, things would be different. Spartan women own land, train in athletics, speak freely. The contrast between city-states is jarring. Greece isn't one nation, it's a patchwork of identities, each fiercely proud, each convinced it has the right way to live. Athens worships intellect. Sparta worships discipline. Corinth worships wealth. Delphi worships prophecy. And yet, despite these differences, they are all Greek, united in language, in religion, in the stories passed from one cracked amphora to the next. United when faced with the Persian threat and divided again the moment it passes. Unity here is rare, conflict almost constant. As the sun begins its slow descent, casting long shadows through the colonnades, you stand once more. Your legs are sore, your mind full, your stomach empty. But you walk forward, deeper into the labyrinth of this ancient world, knowing that every corner hides another lesson, another contradiction, another glimpse of a civilization brilliant and brutal in equal measure. As the sun kisses the horizon, the city of Athens begins its transformation once more. Day yields to evening, and with it comes a shift in tone, from business and toil to reflection and ritual. The golden light washes over the Acropolis, turning its marble glow into something almost otherworldly. You stop and stare, unable to help yourself. Even after days in this world, it still astonishes. You're not alone in your awe. A small group gathers near the base of the hill, preparing for a procession. It's a sacred day, one of many sprinkled through the Athenian calendar, and tonight, offerings will be carried to Athena. Torches are lit. A girl carries a basket of barley. A boy holds a small wooden statue. A priest raises his hands to the sky. Religion is woven into every layer of life here. It's not separated from politics, art, or war. It's in the festivals, the laws, the architecture. The gods are ever present, and not in abstract terms. They walk among you in myth. They demand your attention in ritual, and they reward or punish based on devotion. You don't simply believe, you participate. Farther down the street, laughter bubbles from a cluster of homes. The evening meal is beginning. You smell lentil stew, grilled fish, warm bread. Meals are simple but nourishing and always shared. To eat alone is to announce your loneliness. Even the poorest citizens invite neighbors when they can. Hospitality, even without wealth, is a moral duty. Inside one courtyard, a man tells a story to his children of Odysseus outwitting the Cyclops. The kids are wide-eyed, gripping each other's tunics. Storytelling is entertainment, education, and moral instruction wrapped in one. It teaches cleverness, bravery, and reverence for the gods, all values central to Greek life. But while the children laugh, elsewhere in the city, another kind of learning takes place. In a dimly lit room lined with clay tablets, older students debate dialectics. They quote Plato, invoke Heraclitus, argue about justice, logos, and the role of the soul. It's not for a grade, it's for growth. Philosophy, in this world, is not a discipline, it's a path. And those who walk it are both admired and ridiculed, often in equal measure. Outside, a musician plays a ulos, a double-reeded flute with a haunting tone. The notes slip through the alleys like threads of smoke. Music isn't just for occasions, it's a presence, a constant backdrop. You hear it at weddings, funerals, markets, gymnasiums, in joy and sorrow alike. And then there's the theater. In the distance, you glimpse the great stone tiers of the Theater of Dionysus carved into the side of the Acropolis. On festival days, thousands pack these seats to watch stories unfold, tragedies and comedies alike. They witness kings fall, fools stumble, gods intervene. They laugh, cry, reflect. For a people so deeply concerned with fate, theater is both catharsis and mirror. You realize something profound. This city doesn't hide its contradictions, it displays them. Worship and reason, labor and leisure, war and wisdom. Life here is a balance of opposites, a tension held just barely in harmony. And as the stars prick the sky and the oil lamps flicker to life once more, you find yourself marveling not just at the achievements of this world, but at the people who carry it forward. Not gods, not heroes, just humans, enduring, questioning, creating, and somehow so are you. As night deepens, the city's energy softens, but does not disappear. Athens at night is not like the countryside, where silence reigns and the stars seem close enough to touch. Here, even under the cloak of darkness, the city whispers with life, tempered but ever present. You wander the narrow streets cautiously, guided by the faint orange flicker of oil lamps set in doorways. Along one alley, you hear hushed conversation, the kind exchanged in private, beneath breath, careful not to attract the wrong ears. In this city of free speech, some topics still provoke danger. Politics, scandal, betrayal. There are spies here, informers, men with motives. The democracy of Athens is real, but fragile. Votes are cast with pebbles, yes, but reputations are crushed just as easily. Near a quieter square, you pass a public notice board. By torchlight, you read the decrees, scratched in black ink. New trade regulations, a list of war dead, a fine levied against a merchant who cheated his weights. Transparency is central to Athenian life. Laws are public, justice visible. But that doesn't mean it's always fair. You settle in the shadow of a stoa and watch as a group of men walk by, cloaked, chatting, laughing softly. They're returning from a symposium, perhaps, their minds loosened by wine and philosophy. A few stop to urinate in the corner before staggering home. There is no pretense at modesty here, only habit and routine. Then, a pause. A young boy rushes by, barefoot, breathless. He clutches something in his hand, a message, a coin. He darts into a side alley, vanishing into the dark. Messengers work at all hours. The city never fully sleeps, and neither do its responsibilities. Deals must be struck, warnings must be delivered, secrets must be kept. A moment later, a pair of guards appear from around the corner. Clad in light armor, they carry spears and torches. These aren't soldiers, they're Scythian archers, public slaves employed to enforce order in Athens. Their presence is a paradox. Slaves with the authority to command citizens. They don't provoke fear so much as discomfort. Everyone knows they're necessary. No one enjoys their gaze. Farther out, past the edge of the city walls, you glimpse the faint silhouette of farms and groves in the moonlight. Many Athenians live in the countryside, making daily trips into the city for work or trade. Others, especially during wartime, abandon their fields and crowd into the city for protection, bringing with them livestock, noise, and disease. During the Peloponnesian War, plague will strike here, and thousands will die in cramped quarters beneath the same moon you now walk under. You shiver, not from cold, but from the enormity of this place. It's easy to romanticize ancient Greece, to speak of Plato and Parthenons, but the truth is grittier, heavier. There is sweat here, fear, inequality, yet also astonishing beauty. And as you curl up beneath a colonnade, pulling your cloak tight, you realize this civilization is a marvel, not because it's perfect, but because it strives endlessly to define itself, through debate, through myth, through marble and flame. You breathe in the city one more time, and sleep, once again, finds you in the company of gods and men. When morning returns, it does so without fanfare. No temple bells, no ceremonial chant, just the faint rustle of sandals on stone, the low bray of a mule, the rhythmic splash of water drawn from a fountain. Another day begins in ancient Greece, as ordinary and extraordinary as every day before it. You rise slowly, body stiff, bones aching from sleep, on unforgiving ground. But there's no room for pause. Survival requires motion. As the light floods the city, it reveals more than just rooftops and statues. It uncovers purpose. Each person here seems tethered to some larger idea: duty, glory, balance, or legacy. In the agora, a public dispute is brewing. Two men are shouting, gesturing wildly over the price of a shipment gone wrong. Instead of fists, they each call upon bystanders to support their claims. Eventually, they'll bring it to a public arbitrator, a citizen appointed to hear such cases. In Athens, even minor grievances are matters of civic importance. Justice belongs to the people, for better or worse. You find yourself drawn again toward the Nix, the sloped hill where the ecclesia, the assembly, meets. Today, citizens gather to vote on war strategy. The speakers mount the bema, that simple stone platform, and address the crowd in booming voices. Some call for bold action, others plead for peace. There is no monarch here. The demos, the people, decide. But it's a flawed system. Women, slaves, medics, all excluded. Only free male citizens over 30 have the right to vote, to speak, to shape policy. And even among them, persuasion matters more than principle. A silver tongue can sway a crowd faster than wisdom can. You listen as one orator invokes Pericles, his ghost still powerful in Athenian memory. His vision of democracy, elevated, philosophical, resilient, lingers long after his death. But not everyone agrees. Some accuse his legacy of hubris, of dragging Athens into endless war. Democracy, like every form of government, depends on the quality of those who wield it. Later, as the assembly disperses, you head toward the ceramic workshops. The potters are busy, their hands and feet working in perfect coordination. Wet clay spins into elegant forms: amphorae, kylix cups, storage jars. One artisan paints a scene from the Trojan War on a vase. Achilles drags Hector's body behind his chariot, an image as brutal as it is revered. Art in ancient Greece is never just decorative. It's political, religious, instructional. It tells stories everyone knows, but with new meaning each time. Through these painted lines and sculpted curves, the Greeks define what it means to be human: flawed, passionate, noble, and doomed. Nearby, a teacher lectures a group of young boys beneath the shade of an olive tree. He recites maxims from the 7 sages, short, sharp truths, like know thyself and nothing in excess. These aren't just quotes, they're pillars of education. For the Greeks, knowledge isn't measured in memorization, but in moral clarity. The educated citizen is not just smart, he is good. But even in this world of ideals, reality bites. The teacher glances nervously toward the street, where a wealthy patron passes, robes flowing, slaves in tow. Wealth shapes destiny here, as it does everywhere. And while Athens lauds merit, class still rules. You walk on, the scent of fig trees in the air, the sound of debate behind you, the sun high above, and you wonder again. In a world so old, why does everything feel so familiar? Afternoon sets in with a thick stillness, like the city itself has taken a breath. You find yourself near the gymnasium, an open-air space of columns and dust where men train their bodies as seriously as their minds. The Greek ideal is balance, strength matched by intellect, discipline tempered by beauty. Naked bodies glisten under the sun, not in vanity, but in homage to form. Every flexed muscle, every controlled breath is a tribute to the gods. But the gymnasium is more than a training ground. It's a classroom, a sanctuary, a proving ground for future leaders. Young men quote Homer between discus throws, debate ethics while oiling their skin, and recite geometry as they stretch. In this world, the body is a vessel for thought. To be fit is not just a personal virtue, it is a civic one. You walk past a group gathered in animated conversation. Their voices rise and fall like waves. They argue about fate, politics, virtue, and glory. It's not idle talk. It's how they learn, how they sharpen their minds. The Greeks loved debate, not for consensus, but for the pursuit itself. Truth is never handed down. It's chased, wrangled, fought for. But for all this freedom of thought, you're reminded again that many here do not share it. A slave passes with a heavy yoke on his shoulders, his head down, eyes avoiding contact. A medic, a foreign resident, pays extra taxes and has no voting rights, no path to citizenship. Women are largely absent from these conversations, their wisdom confined to the private sphere. You walk on, down a narrow path. You come upon an old woman kneeling by a roadside shrine. Her face is wrinkled like tree bark, her fingers trembling as she lights a small flame. She whispers to Hecate, goddess of boundaries, ghosts, and crossroads. Her offering, a bundle of garlic, a drop of honey, and a shard of obsidian. You realize that even at the margins of society, the divine remains central. Perhaps especially there. Religion here is not distant or impersonal. It's immediate, practical, woven into everything. If your crops fail, you've angered Demeter. If your child is sick, Apollo may be testing you. If your dreams turn dark, maybe a restless spirit is near. The gods are not remote, they're neighbors, petty, proud, and powerful. In the distance, the hum of a cathora carries on the breeze. Music lessons are underway. A boy plucks a melody while his tutor watches closely. Music, like philosophy and sport, is core to Greek education. It isn't for leisure, it's part of shaping the soul. Melody is believed to influence character. The wrong mode can soften a warrior. The right one can sharpen resolve. Later, you pass a craftsman polishing a bronze helmet. It gleams under the sun, carved into its cheek guards. This helm will soon rest on the brow of a hoplite, a citizen soldier expected to fight for city and kin. War here is not abstract. It's intimate, frequent, expected. You think of Sparta, where every male child is raised for battle, where strength is law and weakness is purged. In Athens, war is wrapped in rhetoric. In Sparta, it's life. And yet both claim to be the heart of Greece. You pause at a fountain and take a drink, the cold water surprising on your tongue. It tastes like stone and sunlight around you. Life continues, merchants haggling, children racing, dogs barking, elders scolding, lovers whispering. The city breathes, it lives, and somehow you're still a part of it. As evening cools the marble underfoot, Athens begins its gentle descent into night once more. The golden sun casts long shadows through the columns of temples and porticos. Torches are being lit, one by one, their flames catching in the bronze trim of armor, in the ripples of tunics, in the eyes of statues that seem almost alive in the shifting light. You pass a sculptor's workshop where a man kneels before a block of Parian marble. His fingers are blistered, his hammer precise. Slowly, a face emerges, goddess or hero. It's unclear yet, but you can feel his devotion in every strike. Sculpture here is not art for vanity's sake, it is legacy. Immortality carved in stone. Further down the street, a procession weaves through the city's spine. Today marks a local festival, small but spirited. Citizens carry torches and laurel branches, singing hymns to Demeter, goddess of grain and harvest. They offer cakes, wine, and grains at her altar. In a society so tied to agriculture, appeasing Demeter is essential. If she withholds her blessing, famine follows. Nearby, a boy is reciting poetry to a small audience. His voice trembles at first, but gains strength. He's quoting Pindar, or perhaps reciting his own verse. In Greece, poetry is everywhere, etched into memory like grooves on a lyre. It's not a fringe interest, it's a tool of education, persuasion, even politics. At the edge of the city, the landscape opens into vineyards and olive groves. Farmers begin returning home with baskets on their backs and dust in their lungs. They've spent the day beneath the punishing sun, tending vines, clearing stones, mending walls. The city reveres the orator, but it survives on the back of the farmer. Not far from the fields, a group of men sit at a crossroads, playing a dice game. Their laughter is loud, but their eyes scan the road cautiously. Gambling is officially frowned upon, but quietly tolerated. The stakes are low tonight, mostly nuts and scraps of bread, but the pride is real. Back in town, you spot a man sprawled across a bench, drunk on cheap wine, singing a slurred ode to Dionysus. No one stops him. In fact, a passerby tosses him a fig. Dionysus, god of wine, madness, and ecstasy, is not only tolerated in Greek society, he's celebrated. His duality, joy and chaos, creation and destruction, is emblematic of the world itself. You find yourself drawn once again to the Acropolis. Its steps glow orange in the torchlight. The Parthenon looms above, columns catching moonlight like silver thread. Standing there, beneath Athena's gaze, you feel your own insignificance, and yet, strangely, your belonging. A soldier sharpens his spear at the base of the hill. A priest mutters to himself, arranging offerings on a small portable altar. A dog curls beside a broken column. The divine and the mundane walk hand in hand here. And as you stand on the stones polished by centuries of sandals, you realize something. This world does not slow for visitors. It doesn't simplify itself for modern eyes. It is complex, contradictory, sometimes cruel, but it is also luminous, inventive, breathtakingly alive. You exhale. The air is cooler now. Somewhere in the distance, a flute begins to play. And for one eternal moment, it feels like you've always belonged. As the final shades of dusk fade into deep night, you wander through the city, now cloaked in stars and silence. The noise of the day has vanished, replaced by the gentle creak of doors closing, the shuffle of sandals returning home, and the occasional bark of a stray dog. Athens doesn't sleep in full. It hums, it rests, it waits. You pass by a small household shrine flickering with oil light. The family inside is gathered around it, whispering prayers for health, fortune, and the safe return of a son who has gone to war. These household rituals may seem small compared to temple processions and state ceremonies, but they are just as vital. In ancient Greece, the home is sacred ground. The hearth is a spiritual center, protected by Hestia, goddess of the flame. Nearby, you hear a quiet chant rising from a doorway. It's a woman singing to her child, a lullaby, older than writing, passed down through generations like an heirloom. Her voice is steady, comforting. Sleep is a sacred act here, not merely a pause from labor, but a time of divine dreams. The Greeks believe that the gods can visit you in your sleep, that dreams might carry messages, omens, or warnings. They listen to their dreams as seriously as they listen to oracles. And in this hour, the gods seem nearer. You walk past a humble home where an old man sleeps outside on a woven mat, a thin cloak pulled up to his chin. His face is weathered but peaceful. He has lived through tyranny, war, famine, and democracy. His eyes have seen changes we now study in books. Yet to him it was simply life, nothing more than the turn of seasons. Above, the sky stretches wide and rich with stars. The Greeks look up not just for beauty, but for understanding. Astronomy and astrology both live here, intertwined. The heavens are maps, calendars, divine scripts. You hear names whispered like prayers: Orion, Cassiopeia, Andromeda, heroes and tragedies etched into the sky, eternal and untouchable. Further along, you find a public fountain, still running, a few figures drawing water in silence. Water is life, and its movement never stops. Even now, it flows through the veins of the city, like blood in the body. The Greeks built aqueducts with astonishing precision, engineering that rivals their temples in brilliance. Function here is as revered as form. On your return to the agora, you notice a solitary figure sitting beneath a statue, scribbling on a wax tablet by lamplight. A student, perhaps, or a philosopher, too restless to sleep. He looks up at you, then back at his work. Words have power here, power to sway votes, to outlive empires, to touch the gods. The streets are quiet now, but the city is not dead. It's simply pausing. The dreams of its people will soon stir. The myths will continue spinning. The eternal questions will once again echo from porticos and gymnasiums. You find a place to sit, stone, cold, and worn. And as you settle in for the night, one truth crystallizes in your mind. You wouldn't last a day in ancient Greece, not because you're weak, but because this world is vast, alive, and relentless. To survive it requires not just strength, but belief in the gods, in the city, in yourself. And for tonight, maybe you do. Dawn cracks once more over the Athenian skyline, and with it comes the slow rousing of a civilization that never truly sleeps. The orange wash over the rooftops reveals more than buildings. It unveils the return of movement, ambition, and purpose. The scent of smoke rises again from hearths. Bakers knead their first loaves. Even before the city fully awakens, it is already alive. You rise and stretch, your limbs sore from another night on cold stone, your mind still racing from the intensity of this world. And yet, you feel something new. Familiarity. The shock is gone. The marvel remains. You pass a row of merchants setting up shop, their carts filled with amphorae of wine, linen dyed in Tyrian purple, baskets of dates, cheese wrapped in fig leaves. They call to one another, joke, haggle, boast. Trade here is not simply economic, it's cultural. Every exchange of goods is an exchange of ideas. You can feel Egypt, Persia, Phoenicia, and beyond pulsing through the veins of the city. But as you approach the port of Piraeus, the energy changes. Here, the clamor is louder, sharper. Ships groan under the weight of cargo. Sailors curse in half a dozen dialects. Slaves unload crates of olive oil and marble while overseers bark orders. This is the city's lifeline, the artery that connects Athens to the world. Without the sea, Athens would wither. It is the salt in its blood. You stop to watch a trireme glide into port, sleek, powerful, terrifying. Its oars glisten like insect wings, perfectly timed. This is no cargo ship, it is a weapon. Greece, for all its philosophy and poetry, is a land of warriors. The sea is both trade route and battlefield. And nearby, a group of hoplites prepares to depart. Their bronze armor gleams in the sun, their spears upright like trees. They are citizen soldiers, each one a farmer, a merchant, or a potter when not at war. They fight not for coin, but for the city itself, for honor, land, ancestors. And they will march knowing their names will be etched into memory, or not at all. Back in the city, preparations are underway for a new festival. You hear the rhythm of drums, the ring of cymbals, the chorus of youth rehearsing songs to Dionysus. Greece has many gods, but few are celebrated as joyously or as dangerously as he. His festivals are moments of permitted chaos, processions of masks, wine-fueled ecstasy, breaking of norms. For one day, peasants become kings, and shame becomes song. But beneath the revelry, deeper truths are explored. In Dionysian rites, the Greeks confront mortality, madness, and the boundaries of reason. It is in surrendering control that they find understanding. You wander toward the edge of the Acropolis once more, looking down over the city. From this height, the temples, markets, houses, and shrines blur into one vast organism, breathing, striving, remembering. It's beautiful, but also heavy. You think again of how much is asked of every person here: faith, sweat, intellect, devotion. This society does not cradle its people. It calls them upward. It demands participation in its myths and maintenance of its ideals. It asks, who are you, and why do you deserve to be remembered? And just for a moment, standing there in the rising light, you feel that question pierce through time, landing squarely on your shoulders. As the final full day in ancient Greece unfolds before you, there is a weight in the air, not of dread, but of reverence. You've begun to understand that time here moves differently. It loops through ritual and myth, reasserting itself in ways both comforting and commanding. Every day feels ancient and urgent all at once. You return to the heart of the city one last time. The agora bustles, of course, it always does, but today you look with new eyes. You see not just buyers and sellers, but a living forum of voices shaping the identity of a people. A man reads aloud from a new play. Another shouts about a shipment of spoiled figs. Across the way, an old philosopher scribbles notes onto a wax tablet as pigeons peck around his feet. Each act, each detail, is part of a collective effort to define what it means to live well. You follow the winding road toward the Areopagus, the rocky hill just northwest of the Acropolis, where justice is deliberated under the open sky. Here, murder cases are tried, not in secret chambers, but in the presence of the gods and the city. The accused speaks, witnesses swear oaths to Athena. The judges, all esteemed citizens, vote silently with stones, black for guilt, white for innocence. There is no jury of peers as we know it today. There are no appeals. There is only the weight of civic duty, the fear of divine judgment, and the hope that truth still matters. Nearby, A young sculptor chips away at a statue of Nike, the winged goddess of victory. Her pose is dynamic, as if caught mid-flight. You watch the artisan step back and squint, adjusting her arm ever so slightly. Art here is frozen motion, an attempt to seize perfection in a moment before it vanishes. It is obsession with form, yes, but also with meaning. Beauty, for the Greeks, is not superficial, it is moral, a reflection of order, symmetry, and virtue. Later, you find yourself standing in the shadow of a temple you had overlooked before. Small, modest, dedicated to Asclepius, god of healing. Offerings crowd its steps, fruit, carvings of limbs, handwritten prayers. You see a man kneel in silence, tears in his eyes, pressing a hand to a column. You don't need to understand the words to understand the pain. The Greeks do not separate science from spirit. Medicine is prayer and practice. Diagnosis is divine and empirical. Hippocrates teaches observation, but still invokes the gods. It is a world where belief and evidence coexist, not in contradiction, but in conversation. You spend your final twilight in the hills, just beyond the city walls. The sounds of Athens soften into a distant hum. Goats bleat, crickets sing. The wind tugs at the olive trees like an old friend. You watch the stars emerge, bright, sharp, impossibly eternal. You trace the constellations the Greeks have named, the myths they have etched into the cosmos. You see Perseus, Orion, Pegasus, stories that guide sailors, inspire poets, and comfort children. And you understand something profound. The Greeks didn't just build temples and write plays. They built a framework for asking the biggest questions about fate, truth, love, justice, death. They gave those questions form, and they passed them on, not as commandments, but as invitations. To live in this world is not merely to exist, it is to participate in a story larger than yourself. The final night in ancient Greece settles in like a soft blanket. The torches flicker, the wind quiets, the city exhales, and you, no longer a stranger, walk through it not as an outsider, but as someone changed. You make your way through the familiar streets, the marble now cool beneath your feet. You pass the agora, empty now, but echoing with the memory of commerce and debate. You hear ghosts of the day, a merchant's boast, a philosopher's challenge, a child's laughter, chasing a stray dog. Everything feels suspended in time, eternal, as if Athens has always existed in this moment of twilight. At the edge of the city, you pass an olive grove, swaying gently in the breeze. The trees are gnarled, ancient. Legend says Athena herself gifted the olive to the city, and with it, peace and prosperity. Each tree is sacred, protected by law and tradition. To harm one is a crime against the gods. You touch the bark of one tree, feeling the ridges beneath your palm. It's older than you by centuries. It will outlive you by more. And yet, for this fleeting second, you are connected, present in the same world. You climb once more to the Acropolis. The Parthenon looms above, still proud, still impossibly perfect. Columns reach for the stars. You wonder how many people have stood where you now stand, asking the same questions. Who built this? Why? What were they trying to tell us? You walk to the edge and look out over the sleeping city. Lanterns glow in the distance. Somewhere, a baby cries. Somewhere, a couple whispers. Somewhere, a man dreams of glory, while another mourns a brother lost at sea. This is no museum. This is no fantasy. This is real life, raw, radiant, unforgiving. And in this final hour, you remember why you came, to understand what it means to live in a world so vastly different from your own. And you've learned that, while the details may differ, the tools, the gods, the customs, the questions are the same. How should I live? What do I owe my community? What happens when I die? Will I be remembered? These questions echo across centuries, and in this place, in this civilization that birthed democracy, philosophy, theater, and science, they found voice and structure and beauty. As you begin to descend the steps of the Acropolis, a cool breeze brushes past your face. It carries with it the scent of stone and smoke, of fig and sea salt. You close your eyes and breathe it in. You do not want to forget. Not the sound of sandals on marble, not the taste of honey and wine, not the hum of the kithara in the distance. You walk slowly, deliberately, not out of exhaustion, but reverence, because you now understand what this place demands. To live here, to survive here, requires more than knowledge. It requires courage, discipline, faith. You wouldn't last a day in ancient Greece, but somehow you did. The stars above Athens are brilliant tonight, scattered like shards of divinity across the sky. The constellations, the same ones watched by philosophers, farmers, and warriors, glow with ageless serenity. Beneath them, the city rests, a living monument to humanity's ceaseless hunger for meaning. You make your way through the silent streets, one last time. Every column, every corner, every worn stone seems to whisper its history. The past is not buried here. It walks beside you. It listens. It teaches. At a quiet temple near the edge of the city, a priest tends to the eternal flame. It sputters gently, casting soft light against carved walls. He nods at you without a word, as though he knows you've come to say goodbye, not just to a city, but to an era, a worldview, a civilization built on questions more than answers. You look once more toward the Acropolis, now just a silhouette against the sky, and think of all you've seen, the debates of the agora, the fire of the forge, the shimmer of statues, the quiet grief of ordinary people. You remember the olive groves and the marble steps, the sacred songs and the sharpening of spears. You remember the contradictions, the beauty and the brutality, the wisdom and the inequality. And, above all, you remember the spirit of inquiry, the belief that the world is not just something to survive, but something to understand. That truth, however painful, is worth pursuing. That excellence is not just a goal, but a duty. That's what makes ancient Greece unforgettable, not its power or monuments, but its insistence that we can be better, smarter, braver, more just. As the night deepens, you pause beneath a sycamore tree, the breeze rustling through its leaves. You take one final breath of this ancient air, this mix of dust, hope, and history, and hold it in your chest. You feel its weight and its gift. And if you've made it this far, dear listener, then you, too, have walked the worn streets of Athens in your mind. You've sat among its thinkers, wandered its marketplaces, listened to its poets, and questioned your place in the world. So, before we part ways, take a moment to reflect, and if you found beauty, insight, or wonder in this journey, consider subscribing to Medieval Nocturnes. We bring the past to life, not just for sleep, but for understanding, for awe. Because, while you might not survive a day in ancient Greece, you can carry its spirit into your own. Now rest, let the stories settle, and let the stars guide you into a night worthy of the ancients.